I need to make a confession at the outset here. A little over 20 years ago, I did something that I regret, something that I'm not particularly proud of, something that in many ways I wish no one would ever know, but that here I feel kind of obliged to reveal. In the late 1980s, in a moment of youthful indiscretion, I went to law school. Now, in America, law is a professional degree. You get your university degree, then you go on to law school. And when I got to law school, I didn't do very well. To put it mildly, I didn't do very well. I, in fact, graduated in the part of my law school class that made the top 90% possible. Thank you. I never practiced law a day in my life. I pretty much wasn't allowed to. But today, against my better judgment, against the advice of my own wife, I want to try to dust off some of those legal skills, what's left of those legal skills. I don't want to tell you a story. I want to make a case. I want to make a hard-headed, evidence-based, dare I say lawyerly case for rethinking how we run our businesses. So, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, take a look at this. This is called the candle problem. Some of you might have seen this before. It's created in 1945 by a psychologist named Carl Duncker. Carl Duncker has created this experiment that's used in a whole variety of experiments in behavioral science. And here's how it works. Suppose I'm the experimenter. I bring you into a room. I give you a candle, some thumbtacks, and some matches. And I say to you, your job is to attach the candle to the wall so the wax doesn't drip onto the table. Now, what would you do? Many people begin trying to thumbtack the candle to the wall. Doesn't work. Some people, and I saw somebody kind of make the motion over here, some people have a great idea where they light the match, melt the side of the candle, try to adhere it to the wall. It's an awesome idea, doesn't work. And eventually, after 5 or 10 minutes, most people figure out the solution, which you can see here. The key is to overcome what's called functional fixedness. You look at that box and you see it only as a receptacle for the tacks, but it can also have this other function as a platform for the candle. The candle problem. Now, I want to tell you about an experiment using the candle problem done by a scientist named Sam Glucksberg, who's now at Princeton University in the US. This shows the power of incentives. Here's what he did. He gathered his participants and he said, I'm going to time you how quickly you can solve this problem. To one group, he said, I'm going to time you to establish norms, averages, for how long it typically takes someone to solve this sort of problem. To the second group, he offered rewards. He said, if you're in the top 25% of the fastest times, you get $5. If you're the fastest of everyone we're testing here today, you get $20. Okay, now this is several years ago, adjusted for inflation. It's a decent sum of money for a few minutes of work. Okay, it's a nice motivator. Question, how much faster did this group solve the problem? Answer, it took them on average 3.5 minutes longer. 3.5 minutes longer. Now this makes no sense, right? I mean, I'm an American, I believe in free markets, that's not how it's supposed to work, right? If you want people to perform better, you reward them, right? Bonuses, commissions, their own reality show, incentivize them. That's how business works, but that's not happening here. You've got an incentive designed to sharpen thinking and accelerate creativity, and it does just the opposite. It dulls thinking and blocks creativity. And what's interesting about this experiment is that it's not an aberration. This has been replicated over and over and over again for nearly 40 years. These contingent motivators. If you do this, then you get that. Work in some circumstances, but for a lot of tasks, they actually either don't work or often they do harm. This is one of the most robust findings in social science and also one of the most ignored. I spent the last couple of years looking at the science of human motivation, particularly the dynamics of extrinsic motivators and intrinsic motivators. And I'm telling you, it's not even close. If you look at the science, there is a mismatch between what science knows and what business does. And what's alarming here is that our business operating system, think of the set of assumptions and protocols beneath our businesses, how we motivate people, how we apply our human resources. It's built entirely around these extrinsic motivators, around carrots and sticks. That's actually fine for many kinds of 20th century tasks. But for 21st century tasks, that mechanistic reward and punishment approach doesn't work, often doesn't work, and often does harm. Let me show you what I mean. So Glucksberg did another experiment similar to this, where he presented the problem in a slightly different way, like this up here. Okay? Attach the candle to the wall so the wax doesn't drip onto the table. Same deal. You were timing for norms. You were incentivizing. What happened this time? This time, the incentivized group kicked the other group's butt. Why? Because when the tasks are out of the box, it's pretty easy, isn't it? If-then rewards work really well for those sorts of tasks, where there's a simple set of rules and a clear destination to go to. Rewards, by their very nature, narrow our focus, concentrate the mind. That's why they work in so many cases. And so for tasks like this, a narrowed focus where you just see the goal right there, zoom straight ahead to it, they work really well. But for the real candle problem, you don't want to be looking like this. The solution's not over here. The solution's on the periphery. You want to be looking around. That reward actually narrows our focus and restricts our possibility. Let me tell you why this is so important. In Western Europe, in many parts of Asia, in North America, in Australia, white-collar workers are doing less of this kind of work and more of this kind of work. That routine, rule-based, left-brain work, certain kinds of accounting, certain kinds of financial analysis, certain kinds of computer programming has become fairly easy to outsource, fairly easy to automate. Software can do it faster. Low-cost providers around the world can do it cheaper. So what really matters are the more right-brain, creative, conceptual kinds of abilities. Think about your own work. Think about your own work. Are the problems that you face, or even the problems we've been talking about here, are those kinds of problems, do they have a clear set of rules and a single solution? No. The rules are mystifying. The solution, if it exists at all, is surprising and non-obvious. Everybody in this room is dealing with their own version of the candle problem. And for candle problems of any kind, in any field, those if-then rewards, the things around which we've built so many of our businesses, don't work. Now, I mean, it makes me crazy. And this is not, here's the thing, this is not a feeling, okay? I'm a lawyer, I don't believe in feelings. This is not a philosophy. I'm an American, I don't believe in philosophy. This is a fact, or as we say in my hometown of Washington, D.C., a true fact. Let me give you an example of what I mean. Let me marshal the evidence here, because I'm not telling you a story, I'm making a case, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Some evidence. Dan Ariely, one of the great economists of our time, he and 3 colleagues did a study with some MIT students. They gave these MIT students a bunch of games that involved creativity and motor skills and concentration. And they offered them for performance 3 levels of rewards. Small reward, medium reward, large reward. Okay? Do really well, you get the large reward, on down. What happened? As long as the task involved only mechanical skill, bonuses worked as they would be expected. The higher the pay, the better the performance. Okay? But once the task called for even rudimentary cognitive skill, a larger reward led to poorer performance. Then they said, okay, let's see if there's any cultural bias here. Let's go to Madurai, India and test this. Reward, standard of living is lower. In Madurai, a reward that's modest by North American standards is more meaningful there. Same deal. A bunch of games, 3 levels of rewards. What happens? People offered the medium level of rewards, did no better than people offered the small rewards. But this time, people offered the highest rewards. They did worst of all. In 8 of the 9 tasks we examined across 3 experiments, higher incentives led to worse performance. Is this some kind of touchy-feely socialist conspiracy going on here? No, these are economists from MIT, from Carnegie Mellon, from the University of Chicago. And do you know who sponsored this research? The Federal Reserve Bank of the United States. That's the American experience. Let's go across the pond to the London School of Economics. LSE, London School of Economics, alma mater of 11 Nobel laureates in economics. Training ground for great economic thinkers like George Soros and Friedrich Hayek and Mick Jagger. Just last month, economists at LSE looked at 51 studies of pay-for-performance plans inside of companies. Here's what the economists there said. We find that financial incentives can result in a negative impact on overall performance. There's a mismatch between what science knows and what business does. And what worries me as we stand here in the rubble of the economic collapse is that too many organizations are making their decisions, their policies about talent and people, based on assumptions that are outdated, unexamined, and rooted more in folklore than in science. And if we really want to get out of this economic mess, and if we really want high performance on those definitional tasks of the 21st century, the solution is not to do more of the wrong things, to entice people with a sweeter carrot or threaten them with a sharper stick. We need a whole new approach. The good news about all this is that the scientists who've been studying motivation have given us this new approach. It's an approach built much more around intrinsic motivation, around the desire to do things because they matter, because we like it, because they're interesting, because they're part of something important. And to my mind, that new operating system for our businesses revolves around 3 elements: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Autonomy, the urge to direct our own lives. Mastery, the desire to get better and better at something that matters. And purpose, the yearning to do what we do in the service of something larger than ourselves. These are the building blocks of an entirely new operating system for our businesses. I want to talk today only about autonomy. In the 20th century, we came up with this idea of management. Management did not emanate from nature. Okay, management is it's not a tree, it's a television set. Okay, somebody invented it. And it doesn't mean it's going to work forever. Management is great. Traditional notions of management are great if you want compliance. But if you want engagement, self-direction works better. Let me give you some examples of some kind of radical notions of self-direction. And what this means, you don't see a lot of it, but you see the first stirrings of something really interesting going on. Because what it means is, it means paying people adequately and fairly, absolutely. Getting the issue of money off the table, and then giving people lots of autonomy. Let me give you some examples. How many of you have heard of the company Atlassian? Okay, looks like less than half. Atlassian is an Australian software company, and they do something incredibly cool. A few times a year, they tell their engineers, go for the next 24 hours and work on anything you want. As long as it's not part of your regular job. Work on anything you want. So the engineers use this time to come up with a cool patch of code, to come up with an elegant hack. Then they present all of these stuff that they've developed to their teammates, to the rest of the company, in this wild and woolly all-hands meeting at the end of the day. And then, being Australians, everybody has a beer. They call them FedEx days. Why? Because you have to deliver something overnight. It's not bad. It's a huge trademark violation, but it's pretty clever. That one day of intense autonomy has produced a whole array of software fixes that might never have existed. And it's worked so well that Atlassian has taken it to the next level with 20% time, done famously at Google, where engineers can spend 20% of their time working on anything they want. They have autonomy over their time, their task, their team, their technique. Okay, radical amounts of autonomy. And at Google, as many of you know, about half of the new products in a typical year are birthed during that 20% time. Things like Gmail, Orchid, Google News. Let me give you an even more radical example of it. Something called the results-only work environment, the ROW, created by 2 American consultants in place at about a dozen companies around North America. In a ROW, people don't have schedules. They show up when they want. They don't have to be in the office at a certain time or any time. They just have to get their work done. How they do it, when they do it, where they do it is totally up to them. Meetings in these kinds of environments are optional. What happens? Almost across the board. Productivity goes up, worker engagement goes up, worker satisfaction goes up, turnover goes down. Autonomy, mastery, and purpose. These are the building blocks of a new way of doing things. Now, some of you might look at this and say, that sounds nice, but it's utopian. And I say, nope. I have proof. In the mid-1990s, Microsoft started an encyclopedia called Encarta. They had deployed all the right incentives. All the right incentives. They paid professionals to write and edit thousands of articles. Well-compensated managers oversaw the whole thing to make sure it came in on budget and on time. A few years later, another encyclopedia got started. Different model, right? Do it for fun. No one gets paid a cent or a euro or a yen. Do it because you like to do it. Now, if you had, just 10 years ago, if you had gone to an economist anywhere and said, hey, I got these 2 different models for creating an encyclopedia. If they went head-to-head, who would win? 10 years ago, you could not have found a single sober economist anywhere on planet Earth who would have predicted the Wikipedia model. This is the titanic battle between these 2 approaches. This is the Ali Frazier of motivation, right? This is the thriller in Manila, all right? Intrinsic motivators versus extrinsic motivators. Autonomy, mastery, and purpose versus carrots and sticks. And who wins? Intrinsic motivation, autonomy, mastery, and purpose in a knockout. Let me wrap up. There's a mismatch between what science knows and what business does, and here's what science knows. 1, those 20th century rewards, those motivators we think are the natural part of business, do work, but only in a surprisingly narrow band of circumstances. 2, those if-then rewards often destroy creativity. 3, the secret to high performance isn't rewards and punishments, but that unseen intrinsic drive, the drive to do things for their own sake, the drive to do things because they matter. And here's the best part. Here's the best part. We already know this. The science confirms what we know in our hearts. So if we repair this mismatch between what science knows and what business does, if we bring our motivation, notions of motivation into the 21st century, if we get past this lazy, dangerous ideology of carrots and sticks, we can strengthen our businesses, we can solve a lot of those candle problems, and maybe, we can change the world. I rest my case.
The Merriam-Webster dictionary defines motivation as the act or process of giving someone a reason for doing something. On-the-job motivation has been debated, studied, and practiced for many years, yielding a variety of motivation techniques. One of the most difficult tasks facing managers across all industries is how to achieve the maximum productivity from each employee. Identifying and implementing the correct motivational theory plays a large role in the success of a firm. If managers have great people but implement the wrong motivation technique, they will not get the most out of their employees. Many intelligent men and women have dedicated their lives to finding an answer to this ongoing problem. Abraham Maslow attempted to solve the dilemma by suggesting Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The hierarchy of needs is a motivational model that was formed through deductive reasoning from his clinical trials. Maslow identified the underlying needs for all human motivation based in 5 categories. Number 1, physiological needs. Number 2, security needs. Number 3, social needs. Number 4, ego or self-esteem needs. And number 5, self-actualization needs. Maslow proposes that every human starts at the first need stage, and cannot address higher level needs until the preceding or lower level needs are satisfied. Maslow believes managers and firms should be flexible and able to tailor incentives to individual employees if they desire to maximize employee contributions.
The basic model of motivation is the expectancy theory. Expectancy theory has 3 components. Number 1, an effort performance expectation that increased effort will lead to good performance. Number 2, a performance outcome perception that good performance will lead to certain outcomes or rewards. Number 3, the value or attractiveness of a given reward or outcome to an individual. Another popular motivation concept is the self-determination theory. The self-determination theory identifies different motivating factors that affect people in different ways. Essentially, the self-determination theory says there are a variety of motivating factors for employees that can be separated into 2 categories, extrinsic and intrinsic. When these rewards or interests are stimulated, it results in an increase of the employee's motivation. However, extrinsic and intrinsic motivating characteristics are different for everyone. Some people are motivated more by extrinsic items and others by intrinsic characteristics. It is important for managers to know who their employees are and what they value. Managers can then adjust motivation techniques to stimulate an employee's extrinsic or intrinsic motivators to yield the most productive behaviors.
In addition to the previously noted theories, there are 3 other lesser research theories. These are static content theories, which look at what energizes human behavior, process theories that look at factors that channel or direct behavior, and third, environmentally based theories, which look at sustaining or maintaining behavior over time. One of the most intricate static content theories is David McClelland's 3 basic needs: achievement, power, and affiliation. His basic theory is that one of these needs drive people to complete tasks, which provides motivation. Achievement drives people to complete a job well, experience self-satisfaction, be more effective in time management, and improve performance with feedback, with people being able to be taught to achieve outcomes. As noted by Dan Pink in his TED Talk, self-motivation is needed to continue improving business with less emphasis on extrinsic motivators. To begin, there are 2 types of environmentally based theory of motivation. When looking at environmental factors, motivation becomes an independent variable. This means that a particular need or goal is the cause of a particular desire that results in certain behaviors. View motivation as intervening independent variable. While there are multiple motivation theories, extensive motivational factors, this module will be focusing on two major principles, extrinsic and intrinsic rewards. Extrinsic motivators are external rewards. These can be natural or artificial. Natural extrinsic motivators are those rewards that are without cost, such as smiles, feedbacks, compliments, and congratulations. Artificial extrinsic rewards are those that cost money, such as merit-based salary increases, furnished new offices, cash, and profit sharing. Extrinsic rewards are, in the simplest sense, the directed effect to obtain a desired outcome. Intrinsic rewards, on the other hand, are self-motivators, which are intangible and include feelings of achievement, growth, and challenge on the job and esteem. Intrinsic motivation is the desire to engage in work because of interest and satisfaction in itself. Just as environmental factors can impact persons to experience intrinsic or extrinsic motivators, extrinsic motivation can influence intrinsic motivators. The rewards impact how a person internalizes their own self-motivation. The self-determination theory states that while motivation cannot originate outside of itself, there can be influences. First is introjected regulation. This is where external motivators are internalized but not accepted as an intrinsic motivator. For example, I know I have to do this, but it's not what I want to do. Persons increase their self-esteem by temporarily accepting the external motivator to avoid guilt. Second is the identified regulation, where the person internalizes the extrinsic motivator and agrees that the extrinsic motivator is important to them. The person becomes more autonomous. This means the person consciously examines the extrinsic motivator, deciding that it is important to them, and acts on their own motivation, which is now extrinsic affecting intrinsic. Integrated regulation is one step further than identified regulation. The extrinsic motivation matches the intrinsic motivation. However, this is considered an extrinsic force because the end goal is directly related to obtaining the extrinsic motivation or reward. Last is amotivation, which is the total lack of motivation. The extrinsic factors do not impose any intrinsic force on motivation. However, just as the above can increase motivation to complete a task, extrinsic motivation may devalue the project. Extrinsic rewards can dampen creativity and thus devalue the project. Additionally, as noted by Dan Pink, increased extrinsic reward can lead to weaker performance.
New research postulates that there are more than just intrinsic and extrinsic environmental factors that greatly impact motivation. As noted by many researchers, pro-social factors play a major part in motivation. The premise of pro-social motivation is the social aspect of work, how one person's work affects their colleagues' well-being. People following pro-social motivation are givers. Researchers note that pro-social motivation is the desire to benefit others, and when there are employees who are pro-socially motivated, they are more likely to adapt to the perspectives of others and to understand their needs and preferences. In addition to looking at the colleague's well-being, pro-social motivation causes employees to look at the collective whole and not the individual. This becomes contagious since there is increased team success, meeting goals which causes other people to want to work harder to meet those goals. Pro-social motivation becomes contagious with task interdependence, amplifying the individual and also the team motivation. Lastly, pro-social boosts morale, highlights the team aspect in social acceptance with increased communication as it is for the benefit of the team and team viability or the emotional connection. An additional research study found that emotional ties to the organization, such as fear of letting down their team, increase introjected regulation, extrinsic motivational factor. Low alternatives such as inability to leave their current job leads to negative emotional motivation. High sacrifice leads to increased external motivation. Therefore, pro-social motivation can have positive increased creativity on job as well as a negative impact, such as introjected regulation, extrinsic motivators that lead to less job satisfaction and decreased pro-social motivation.
New research has postulated that intrinsic and pro-social motivation concurrently have increased drive as opposed to being separate. People who are intrinsically and pro-socially motivated are driven to generate ideas based on a joint desire to enjoy the process of developing ideas and produce outcomes that benefit other people. Intrinsic motivation draws attention to novelty, and pro-social motivation encourages perspective talking, making sure that employees' novel ideas are also useful. Also noted that intrinsic motivation was only related to higher creativity when employees were also prosocially motivated. Intrinsic and prosocial teams often try to create a better working environment for their colleagues. When there are team-based incentives such as recognition for the greater good, teams can work together to support a range of positive outcomes. When combined, there can be greater influence on the common good. It is important to note that there are differences between intrinsic and prosocial motivation. Intrinsic motivation is the natural urge to complete work, very autonomous versus prosocial motivation, where there is an internal drive to push oneself to complete work and be less autonomous. Second, intrinsic motivation is process-focused, and the work is an end of itself. This directly contradicts prosocial motivation, where the work is a means of benefiting others. Lastly, there is a temporal or time difference between intrinsic and prosocial motivation. Intrinsic motivation is present-focused. The person is interested in completing their work for themselves, such as pride in completing their work. Prosocial is more future-oriented or long-term orientation, where the goal of obtaining social value and benefiting others, such as a Doctors Without Borders, where physicians work for the social value. Prosocial motivation appears to be an extrinsic motivation as the social value appears to be the reward. Prosocial motivation leads to increased self-behavior and social responsibility within the environment, demonstrating that prosocial motivation can be both an extrinsic or intrinsic motivator. However, when it is an intrinsic motivator, there is increased productivity, creativity, and team focus as discussed above. There has been research to state that the job characteristics need to match with people's needs to retain them as employees. First are job demands, which are unfavorable physical or psychological requirement from the employee. Job resources, which are favorable, are physical and psychological requirements to work towards goals, reduce job demands, and stimulate personal growth. The three basic positive job needs are autonomy, relatedness, and competence. Job demands take away from these needs, while job resources are something the employees can obtain, which increases participation and task orientation. Additionally, autonomous motivation is where the person likes their job and is able to self-motivate themselves to complete tasks because they work when they want to and choose to do what they want to do. Additionally, autonomous motivation increases commitment to the company. Research found that self-discipline and freedom to complete the job in a structured time manner resulted in a job well done. Work pressure was also slightly positive towards basic needs and moderately associated with work effort because there was fulfillment of the worker-employee's potential.
Studies and research have shown key factors that determine the reasoning behind employee motivation, and some even affected by different job characteristics. Although there are some employees who are intrinsic, there are also those who are extrinsically motivated. Some of the key extrinsic factors are empowerment, trust, leadership, rewards and recognition, incentives, and monetary payments. One major factor that has been proven to increase employee motivation is the desire to earn a reasonable salary from their workplace. Money is the fundamental inducement. No other incentive or motivational technique comes even close to it with respect to its influential value. This motive is said to encourage the employees to attain greater productivity in the workplace. Another factor affecting motivation is the workplace empowerment. This particular factor provides benefits to organizations and leaves the employees to feel a sense of belonging and take pride in their work. Employees execute their finest novelties and thoughts with the sense of belonging, enthusiasm, and delight, in empowered organizations. Rewards and recognition are essential factors in enhancing employee job satisfaction and work motivation. Research has suggested that rewards now cause satisfaction of the employee, which directly influences performance of the employee. Rewards are management tools that hopefully contribute to a firm's effectiveness by influencing individual or group behavior. A few examples of rewards are pay, promotion, bonuses, and appreciation and recognition of employees and employees' task fulfillment. This stimulates employees towards working with more energy and dedication to the organization. Leadership is known to play a role in motivation. Leaders encourage and raise others to higher levels of morality and motivation. Leadership is about getting things done the right way. To do that, you need people to follow you. You need people to trust you. And if you want them to trust you and do things for you in the organization, they need to be motivated. Additionally, trust plays a significant role, so it should always be preserved to ensure organization's existence and to enhance employees' motivation.
Take a look at the average employee. He gets up in the morning, gets dressed, goes to work, makes coffee, checks Facebook, and so it goes. Most people underperform. Do they love what they're doing? Hardly. Have you inspired him to fulfill your business plans? Perhaps not. Imagine what might happen if you could turn that around. Is it possible? Absolutely. A salary brings people to work. Recognition motivates them to perform. Research from the HeartMath Institute reveals that it is emotion that drives your organization, not intellect. Feeling appreciated is not an optional extra. It's a basic human need. Fact: appreciation improves cognitive functioning, creativity, mental clarity, and innovative thinking. Science has proven that there is a strong connection between the heart and the brain. The heart has its own neural network, a mind of its own. Engaging this region through recognition results in employees feeling valued and appreciated. This improves engagement, performance, and retention, and even their health. In fact, when your staff experience uplifting emotions such as appreciation and care, it results in improved motivation and performance, greater creativity and innovative problem solving, better decision making, more cognitive flexibility, improved memory, stronger immunity to disease, balanced hormones, and longer lifespan. That's why we see recognition as more than a program. It's a way of life and a choice of daily leadership practice that's critical if you wish to engage your employees and motivate higher performance in your business. It deepens employee engagement and raises your profits. Achievement Awards Group can help you engage your staff using effective long-term recognition strategies. We bring over 30 years' experience to the table. As specialists in combining behavioral science with artistic execution, we can help you to optimize your staff fulfillment, smooth organizational operation, boost retention, and improve your bottom line. Call us today to find out how. Achievement Awards.
Motivated employees work best in the interest of organizations, which leads them towards growth, prosperity, and productivity. While there are people driven by these specific factors, there are also those individuals who are not intrinsic nor extrinsically motivated. There are individuals in management positions who are poorly educated and have low qualifications for managers. These individuals and employees are found to have a low level of motivation. This lack of qualification leads to inappropriate use of the work potential of employees in promoting their professional skills, a situation that leads to a clear result: demotivation of employees. It is possible that an employee is enjoying all the job-related activities but still has a low level of motivation. Corporations, now more than ever, are facing increased competition due to rapid globalization. It is essential for managers to maximize the productivity of each employee they oversee. To do that, managers need to become well-versed in the different theories and practices of motivation, as well as the implications of each philosophy. Throughout almost every model, it is the responsibility of the manager to get to know his employees not only on a professional level, but on a personal level. This is because in order to properly motivate people, managers need to have an understanding of what employees value. The conclusion will discuss managerial implications of each motivational philosophy that was previously addressed for benefiting on the job motivation. Maslow believes managers and firms should be flexible and able to tailor incentives to individual employees if they desire to maximize employee contributions. The expectancy theory states that valued outcomes need to be identified and utilized. Additionally, managers need to create an environment where employees feel extra effort will result in better performance. This concept is crucial for the expectancy theory, which is the basic philosophy of motivation. Next, the self-determination theory believes managers should adjust and emphasize extrinsic or intrinsic motivators depending on the employee's preferences. This requires managers to know employees on a personal and professional level to learn what they value. Intrinsic motivators help achieve desired success when interests are related to work and self-worth. Extrinsic motivators help to achieve desired success when carefully constructed rewards match what the employee values. However, managers must take care to ensure that extrinsic motivation does not impact employee performance. Alternatively, prosocial motivators are values related to the common good of the group, team, or firm. Prosocial motivation is unique because it relies on a person putting the group before themselves, which is rare in our culture. As stated before, it is important to understand what motivates employees. Employee motivators are connected to job satisfaction. The more an employee is satisfied with their job, the higher their motivation and retention levels will be. Thus, multiple factors influence employees' motivation. A manager in today's environment will be well versed to understand motivational theories. This will impact the employee productivity and satisfy on the job motivation.